Have you ever wondered what would have happened if Tanjirō had met another pillar during the first episode? Would one of the pillars of these two have been spared like Ja, or would they have just mercilessly killed them? And besides, would this led to Tanjirō learning his different style of breathing? In this video we will look at different scenarios with all the pillars, starting with the crowd wins. Let's start with the fact that the much more ruthless than Ja. This was clearly seen when he cut Nezuko in the 22nd episode and checked her with his blood. And secondly, this is his story in which the demon killed his entire family, leaving only him and the youngest alive brother. By virtue of all these factors, it is very unlikely that he would have spared and would have spent 2 hours listening to the tears of Tanjirō. There is a clear belief that demons and humans can never cooperate together, so even if he tries to absolutely spit, and in the end after that, of course, he will also be completely defeated, because it turns out that Sanami has no reason to kill Tanjirō, so he will most likely leave after giving a lecture about how weak he is. That's the chronology. Even if he also survived, he will not have a teacher with whom he could train, since last time she was out of good reasons for Urakadaki to take him as a student, so he was overcome with rage, would go on his journey to find the being responsible for the murder of his family without having absolutely no preparation for a hunter. The only ability I could rely on is his sense of smell and inhumanly but I don't think he would have been able to get far with such abilities. Maybe he could kill a couple of devil's demons, exposing them to the sun, but luck will not always be with him, so I think he would not have a chance to survive. So okay, this scenario is just deplorable. Imagine that the pillar of love Mitsuri also came. Maybe the outcome will be better from this. Let's start with the fact that she is probably the kindest among swordsmen. It's not for nothing that she is still a pillar of love, but her abilities are also not bad. Under this shy and cute character hides a strong and ruthless demon slayer, and also who takes her duty seriously. Considering this, if she was the one who found there instead of Ja, everything would take a really interesting turn. Here it is important to remember that Mitsuri there was one of the few people who accepted on the tongue and even later treated her with care and love, so if she saw the determination on the tongue not to kill but to protect her brother, she would not have the heart to kill her. After listening to the story of Itajik, she would sympathize with him and would offer to teach him how to kill demons, and there he would. In any case, watching the travels of these two would be very entertaining, if only because of the fact that we would have seen this beauty a lot more. Well, there is a big problem in this. At the beginning, Mitsuri was a student when she first joined the organization. Her basic breathing style was flame breathing. However, she quickly realized that this style was no longer suitable, so she created her own style of love breathing, a very unique breathing that uses a sword as a whip and is supposed to mainly on the flexibility and speed of the swordsman and not on physical strength. You probably already understood why this would be a problem for Tanjirō, since flexibility is not his distinctive side at all. With such a style he would have been much weaker than in the original story, and just like with Sanami's story, he would have died already at the beginning. Well, at least a little longer than in the last story. Even if he managed to live long enough to awaken the breath of the sun, it would be very difficult for him to do this because the breath of the sun requires a lot of physical strength, so he would not be able to use this properly, all because he practiced breathing that does not require strength. So no matter what kind of breath he uses, I don't think it will last long. And in this scenario, the stories were interesting enough, but we still have to find out what will happen to the other pillars. The man who is on the list of the most ruthless characters, even after Tangan almost died fighting with the sixth moon, he reproached him for having received serious wounds against the weakest higher moon. If it was he who found Tanjik in the first episode, everything it would be very bad. Being so ruthless, he wouldn't even bother to listen to Tanjik for a second and quickly killed Benzoko, leaving our hero traumatized and lonely. If by some chance he tries there to protect his sister, would also end tragically. Both of them do not care about any sentimentality at all, therefore, he would simply cut off their heads with one thrust. Well, even if the Tajik survives, he still would not have a teacher who could teach him to fight against demons in the same way as there is an option with the most. He would try to find the creature that killed his family but died, would have met some second rate. The demon is the next pillar of the insect, and the interaction with her will be a little more complicated. The fact is that at the beginning of the series, Shinobu was shown to us as cheerful a demon who would like to live in cooperation with demons, but as we know in fact it is not so. In her heart there lives immeasurably hatred for the demon because they killed her sister. Does this mean that she would have killed Nezuko having met in the first episode? In my opinion, this meeting theoretically could have lived there as a sister. She probably would have attacked them right away like Atagia did, but after witnessing how Nezuko defends her brother, she would have been stunned by reminding her of her own sister. She would have been very curious to know why Natsuko behaves like that and spared to see what happens next. It would be unlikely that she would kill her immediately since she is not famous for her strength and would initially stand for 2 hours talking to them after learning their story. She would also accept as a student and teach how to use insect breath. However, I repeat once again, there would be serious problems with this, since with the breathing style this technique does not require physical strength because Shinobu herself is very weak, so she adapted it breathing for himself. He will also have to study all kinds of poison and have a unique opportunity to ride like a Shinobu. Still, it cannot be denied that this is breathing one of the worst for Tanjirō, and he will also be much weaker than in the original story, but it will take years to master this technique correctly, and even if he owns it, I don't think he will last long, so he will most likely die fighting stronger demons like Rui or Maximum Guitar, but he was lucky on the personal front as he would have met from the channel much more often and it would already look more like a drama in the anime series. There are 4 more pillars left, the next of which is the results of this, as only if the other pillars had hatred and ruthlessness are more than the most selfish among them. He absolutely does not care what is happening around him, always immersed in his thoughts. He also does not show any emotions and acts guided by purely logical reasoning, although logic is by no means something bad, but when it comes to the first episode with Tanjirō, it will play a cruel joke for some pillars. Really, it's hard to imagine what they would do in this situation, but when it comes to Tokita, I have no doubt at all that he immediately killed the bull. Even if Natsuko will cover Tanyika or vice versa, he will cover her. Nothing will change the token's view. This question is very simple. A demon is bad, you need to get rid of the bad one too and done. Goodbye. Yes, it would be pretty quick to meet with them. On the one hand, he is a very disciplined person and follows his duties. However, on the other hand, he has good intentions and a pure heart, as well as the belief that the strong should always protect the weak. Based on this, if Konosuba could also attract his attention and make him listen, I believe that Ringoku would believe them. And in addition, it is very difficult to imagine a situation that would mercilessly cut out at least Nezuko, not to mention Tanya. This is definitely something that he would not have done. Respectively, Rengoku would have taken them to himself and taught them flame breathing as well, and unlike other styles that we considered earlier, this breathing would really suit him very well. Tanjik is predisposed from birth to the breathing of the sun, and the breathing of the flame is very close to it. I would even say that this breathing even fits much better than the breathing of water in the original version. What will happen and after that, his journey will be very similar to the original. I would have gone on several low-ranked missions and eventually met him in the original version. He almost died fighting with him, however. Now he has become stronger, so I think he would have been able to, even without awakening the breath of the sun or without the intervention of Q. From now on, Tanjirō will become stronger and stronger with each episode and story. In the end it will end similarly to the original. Before we consider the cases where the Tanjiro meet with the strongest pillar, let's look at what would have happened if he had met X-ray nodes in the Red Light Arch. We learned that he cares a lot about people and puts himself in danger to protect others. However, when it comes to demons, he becomes a completely different person and does not show the slightest mercy. So even though we for the third season strongly imbued with Tenji, is really hard to imagine that he would be spared. He is not as optimistic as Rengoku or Gyomai, and therefore most likely I would have killed on without really thinking about it. And finally it's time to meet with the strongest pillar. Thanks to religious upbringing, love for all beings lives in his heart and he easily cries even for trifles. Tanjiro and Zuko will definitely be scared when he sees such a boar in the forest. I think this interaction will really benefit them. Dem is a really understanding person and he could feel that Nezuko's intentions are sincere and pure, and therefore there was no reason for him to attack them. He would take Tanjiro under his wing and teach him the breath of the stone with Jamai as a mentor. Tanjiro would first of all try to pump out his physical strength, since the strength of breathing depends on it like the breath of a flame. With the help of this, Tanjirō would become much stronger than when he uses the breath of water. Good physical strength would also allow him to use the breath of the sun better. Another change that may occur in this version is that Tanjirō will use for combat another weapon. Perhaps it will be an axe or a mace, as I preferred this gem. Regardless what kind of weapon will he choose, I believe that the tank could become very strong, and most likely it would have gone the same way as in the final better.